Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Speedrun Insider. My name is CJitsallGewd. Thank you so much for tuning in. I just wanted to say before we introduce my guest this week that you guys have been so supportive, been downloading on and listening to us on Spotify and YouTube and Google Podcasts and Apple Podcasts and Amazon Podcasts. So thank you so much. The support's really been terrific. If you want me to be able to read and be able to respond to your feedback, the two best places to do that right now, they're on the YouTube comments and our Twitter page, which is at Speedrun Insider. So if you either leave a comment on the YouTube release or message us on the Twitter page, I will be able to see your comments, your feedback, and maybe also tell me who you'd like to see on in the future as a guest. So we are taking requests. So thank you so much, everybody who's helped make the show a success. I'm looking forward to doing more episodes. And speaking of more episodes, we have an episode for you right now. My guest this week, he's one of the best kept secrets on Twitch, and I say that with full earnest and honesty. He's the Final Fantasy fanatic himself. He runs a few Final Fantasy games. He's the Red Beard of Justice. He's my friend, and maybe soon yours, SilentHero. How's it going, bud?
That was a truly superlative intro.
I tell everyone that they're getting the superlative intro, and then everybody is like, okay, yeah. And then they get their intro, and then they're like, wowie zowie, that's pretty cool.
I paint me impressed.
Hey, listen, I'm not a Lemon Street chump here, you know? I went to college for this.
At least it's paying for something, right?
Well, hey, listen. Hey, now, I grew up playing NBA Jam, so it's all I can do. But
He's on fire.
Boom shakalaka from downtown. So tell the people who you really are, because I know that my superlative intro is funny, but it doesn't really tell people a hell of a lot about who you are.
Indeed, and do any of us really know who we are? I'll do the best to try and summarize it in a few sentences. Yes, I am SilentHero, probably the most unfortunately named streamer on Twitch, because I am very much not silent. Maybe a hero to some, but...
A hero is in the eyes of the beholder.
Yeah, I'll take that. I'll accept that. And yeah, I play way too much Final Fantasy.
Yeah, you definitely even casually you kind of kill me with the amount of Final Fantasy that you play. I will say recently you've been doing some other casual stuff. You've been playing with your friend. Is it Breach? Is that who you've been playing with? You've been playing with Breach. You've been doing some Halo playthroughs because you haven't played that.
Correct. This, believe it or not, I completely missed the Halo bandwagon up until now.
Yes, Halo, the American Final Fantasy, and and then you just started recently, and I don't know if you'll be done with this project by the time that the podcast comes out or not, but you just started recently doing all the 120 stars for all of the games in the 3D All-Star kind of package.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I go way back with Mario. That's kind of my beginnings of playing video games starts with Mario. So when they announced this pack, I was like, well, I know what I'm doing.
Not to get too far off into the weeds, like right at the beginning, but I think that if and when I ever have children, or when and if maybe more apropos, but I'm going to force them to play games in the order of which I was forced to play them. So like, oh yes, I'm going to be playing the new Nintendo Mario. You're playing the NES one. And then when you get done with that, you can play through the creepy, weird acid trip of Mario Bros. 2. And then 3. And then World. Then Yoshi's Island. And then you'll be like, man, I want more of this. And I'll let you play Yoshi's Story. And then back to Mario 64. Then Sunshine. Which, again, I think some people are going to be disappointed by. If you're going from SM64 to Sunshine. I know Sunshine in a time capsule, like, people love that game. But it's so antithetical to everything else that Mario had been up to that point.
It's a game that stands on its own legs, and you have to play the game that's presented to you, not the game that you want it to be. And when you can kind of take it in a bubble, I think it still stands up as a really fun experience.
So, this is my argument about Super Mario Sunshine. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this. You also have a very lovely voice, by the way. That was not in my superlative intro. It was not in your intro, but your velvety tones could cure cancer if researched properly.
You know, you're not the first to tell me that, so at this point in time, I think I just have to accept it.
There you go. So here's the thing about Super Mario Sunshine. I equate it to... Are you familiar with the game Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg?
I am familiar with it. I have seen it played. I've seen speedruns of it, but I've never actually played it myself.
So the concept is like you're a chicken boy that pushes around an egg, right?
Mm-hmm.
If that was a Mario game, and it was Billy Hatcher and the hose gun, right? That would be weird. It's like they had this game about a hose, and they put Mario in it. That's how I feel about it anyway. And like, it's cool. It expands kind of like the Mario universe. It's different. But it's kind of the way that I view like Nuts and Bolts for Banjo. They had a game they wanted to make about kart building, which on its own merit is a cool game. But it wasn't a Banjo game. And then they did some Banjo stuff to try and make it feel like Banjo-Kazooie. But it never ever felt like a Banjo game. I'm curious what you think about that.
Well, that's kind of Nintendo's MO, though, right? They don't really ever set out to be like, this is going to be a Mario game. They just have their R&D team come up with creative ideas, and then Miyamoto walks in and goes, you know, this would work better as a Star Fox game, and then you have to bend over backwards to cram Star Fox into it in the 11th hour. That's just kind of how Nintendo operates. So I would say that your theory is probably not too far off base from what actually happened. But like, I will say this, and this was actually a revelation I kind of came to over the weekend, is everyone talks about like how weird it is to control FLUDD and how it's so different from anything that Mario had presented up until that point. But I say the exact same thing about Mario Odyssey.
Right.
I think all of the movement tech in Mario Odyssey feels so foreign and alien. Like the tuck and rolls, the jump, throw your hat, get an extra bounce. Now we have aerial double jumps. Like all of this stuff is just so foreign and odd to me, and it just feels weird. But I understand that once you get that movement and control down, you know, Odyssey is a fantastic game. I think the same rule applies to Mario Sunshine. It just demands you play it's clunky. There's no two ways around it. It is very clunky. But once you kind of master the jank, you don't even really think about it anymore.
I gotta say too, I was never a fan of motion controls. We had a Wii, and it was reserved for Wii Sports. That was basically it, because I just was never a fan of the motion controls.
Absolutely same.
And I'm like, I don't like. It's not even like some people are like, oh, you don't want to work out. It's like, nah, bud. It's way worse than that. It's like the Wii is a great concept, but it's a great concept if you have a room in your house that you can set the Wii up properly in. It's the same thing with the Kinect. Who has a room in their house or the VR, I guess, is the modern example. For a VR experience to be completely like enjoyable, you need a room in your house that you have nothing else going on in.
Yeah, VR dedicated room.
Yeah, it's like, who can do that? We did not have a situation in the house that I grew up in where we could have the Wii and everyone could use the Wii, and you know, it was just like I played through the first world, and it took me like a few hours because it just was not. It was very janky, and I remember being like, "Why can't I just plug a controller into this?"
And God help you if you had a ceiling fan.
Oh yeah, we had a giant beam in the middle of my living room, so you put your hand up and you hit your hand on the ceiling.
Not only that, like I worked at GameStop during the time that the Wii was in circulation, and the amount of consoles that we would get back of people saying it was defective, that the remotes weren't working, and the immediate follow up question is, "Do you have a ceiling fan?" Well, yeah. I was like, "Well, turn the ceiling fan off and try it again."
That's
It would mess up the infrared beams. The original remote, if all you played on the Wii was with a Motion Plus, you didn't get the Wii experience. Those original remotes were trash.
yeah, they were. I remember my brother had like a Wii. Like he had a Wii in the initial scrum of people that got Wii's. They were fighting people at the stores for them. And we went to his trailer, and he had a pretty good setup for it. And you're playing in his living room. He had a glass coffee table in his living room, and it was just we determined that we had to put a blanket over the glass coffee table or something because it was really messing with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if there was any kind of infrared breakdown, it was just not read.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we could talk about anything for the entire length of the show, but I want to get into some Speedrun Insider type questions. And I guess we're talking about the Wii, we're talking about your time at GameStop, we're talking about like some of your original games. I guess it sounds like Mario, but what were the games that you played kind of growing up? Maybe what are the most important games from that time? Instead of like what is your first game?
Right. Well, so I grew up a Nintendo kid just all the way through. I didn't have any Sony or Sega consoles. I I am told, see, I was born on an Air Force base, and I was told that there was an NES on base that I played as a very small child, but I don't have any memories of that. But very early on, we got a Super Nintendo, and uh, that was that's where all of my gaming memory starts. So that's, a lot of Mario All Stars, a lot of Donkey Kong. Just the classic Nintendo is what I really cut my teeth on.
Mm-hmm.
The and like even like in a speedrun sense, like if you talk to some of the old folks of the speedrun community, they'll talk about how, like, well, I was speedrunning as a kid and just didn't realize that's what it was called. I was kind of doing the same thing with like Pokemon on Game Boy. I would fire up Pokemon Blue and just see if I could beat it before, in one sitting, or just how fast could I do it this time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's where the initial desire for wanting to get into speedrunning, kind of the seed was planted there.
Right. It's so funny. So many people tell me that their speedrunning roots start on the Super Nintendo, and I have to say, that for me, I missed that whole generation. We didn't have a Super Nintendo. My grandparents had an NES, and my brother had an NES, which it broke at some point. But my grandparents had an NES. My brother had golf, and he had Super Mario Brothers. And then my grandparents had a whole box. They had like, SMB3. They had. I remember my favorite game was like Super Volleyball or Super Dodgeball or something. Really fun game. I think I plays it before. Plays it before. I just turned into Gollum. Okay, cut that out. I think I've played it since. And so I never played like Super Mario World or Yoshi's Island or Super Metroid or Link to the Past or any of those games. The only game that I ever played was my uncle had an SNES, but he only had one game. He had NBA Jam.
Nice. So that's where it comes from.
So I played the hell out of NBA Jam. Every time I went to his house, he'd do like NBA Jam, and I'm like, it's on fire. So we'd like go down to his basement, and we'd like fire it up.
I was gonna guess it was gonna be a sports game, but I was expecting you to hit me with like Bill Lambier's Combat Basketball or something off the wall. That's a real game. That is a real game.
I know, dude. Bill Lambier's a freaking animal. Shout outs. If no one ever watched the Last Dance Michael Jordan documentary, you should go watch that. Even if
Absolutely.
if you're not interested in sports, it's just from the perspective of a competitor. It's really interesting.
Hmm.
All right, so those are the games that you kind of cut your teeth on. What was where? How did you get into speedrunning? And a lot of people tell me, a lot of people, it's kind of creepy how or crazy. Say like Sigalemic or a super old task that they download and something to that effect. But like, what was the first time that you remember seeing a speedrun?
So this is interesting because this would have been probably late high school. I'm gonna say like sophomore, junior year of high school. I found a video on YouTube back when that was a thing you could just do and you weren't recommended crap all the time. It was called Automatic Mario.
Hmm.
And it was, well, what I know now is that it was actually a rip from Nico that had been put on YouTube. And it was this very elaborate ROM hack of Mario World that was set to this just, it was set to music, and it's some super collage of a bunch of anime nonsense. I have no idea.
Hmm.
But the actual video itself just entranced me because I'd never seen Mario done like that. So I was like, how is this possible? This doesn't even seem humanly feasible. So I went down the rabbit hole and I found a nice little video, or a nice little website called taskvideos.org.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
was just absolutely floored that there was this whole like repertoire of people that were pushing video games to their just absolute limits.
Yeah. Yeah. So, do you remember the first one that you saw? Sorry, the one that on once you got to task videos. Like, did
Uh,
you look anything up in particular?
I wish I did, because at that point it was super good, and like something that we'll touch on probably later that really stuck with me. I don't know if they still do it because I've not been to the website in a long time, but back then, not only were there like tasks for the best possible time, they were
Mhm.
also sorted by entertainment value. They got an
Mm.
entertainment score.
Mhm.
And what I would do is I would just scroll down and find a game that I recognized that had a high entertainment score, and I would watch those. So I think a lot of them started with like Gradius and like just some of the just insane movement tech and stuff that they would do.
Wow. Yeah. I remember that. I think I do a lot of research on task videos, and I've talked to a lot of people. So I mean, there's a lot of. It's crazy how similar. It's like everyone has a different story, right? But everyone's stories end up being so similar too. It's so interesting.
I mean, we, as you know, even though speedrunning has exploded in the last several years to what it is, at its core, it's still a very niche thing, still a very grassroots organization. So we all kind of come from the same cloth.
Yeah, but imagine if every hero and villain in the Marvel universe had the same origin, right?
They kind of do, but you know.
Come on, man, don't do me dirty.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying though. It is really interesting, especially people that have been in the scene for a while. I didn't really kind of process that those were actual people doing tasks, and that like there were people that were speed runners, probably until like GDQ really started happening. Though I think that was what really opened my eyes to, oh, there's a community, people do this.
What year would you say all this was around?
um so you're gonna have to bear with me because there's a gigantic spot in my memory from like 2009 to 2013 where I was so engrossed in the fighting game community that that is all that I remember.
Okay, sure.
I was, yeah, I played Street Fighter 4 competitively. I traveled for it. I went to tournaments. I was at Evo in 2012.
Okay, what the fuck? All right, we're gonna talk about that.
I told you, man, I have stories on stories. You just have to hit me with the right trigger phrase to get them to come out.
Yeah, I gotta ask you good questions. I've got it.
Yeah, so I know that I discovered, speedrunning and stuff during that time, but so much of that is just ingrained in the Street Fighter 4 training mode that I don't remember a lot of specific details. I
Right.
know I wasn't watching classic games done quick, but I know it was super early on. Like I know the first GDQs that I was watching were still when they would go into the crowd and hand people the microphone and let them tell stories while the runner was doing runs.
Yeah.
Everyone knows the cringe video. Yeah. Could you stop?
Yeah.
Everyone remembers that, but yeah. So I was watching by that point. So for whatever year that was, is when I was pretty consistently watching GDQs and was starting to get ingrained in speedrun culture.
Wow. How long until you did your first actual speedrun?
Okay, so actually a pretty decent amount because I sell myself short a lot.
I guess so, because you've never told, in all the time that I've known you, you've never mentioned a mumbling word about you being a master Street Fighter player. I probably would have said that during your superlatives.
Yeah, it's a problem. I mean, to get real for a second, I do have bipolar depression and anxiety. That does, it is something. I mean, it's not. I don't address that for pity points. I just want to bring it up that it is something that I deal with. So I've got some things that hold me back. I don't put myself up on a pedestal. I kind of live my life in a way where I under promise so I can over deliver.
Listen, I've been there.
So that's kind of, I'm working on it. I'm taking steps. I'm getting better.
Hey, listen, I'm really happy that you're taking steps. I don't mean this in a really fucked up way. I'm still gonna give you shit about it, but
oh, please, by all means, do. You're close enough in the circle that you can do that.
All right, that's good because we're gonna get to some shit on you later. But trust me, I've been annoyed by you plenty of times, motherfucker. I'm gonna see if I can't knock you back a few steps.
Lay down the law. I am ready. I came prepared.
So was it Super Mario? Was it Star Fox 64? Was your first Gambit or?
So what happened was, because this is actually kind of an interesting story. I was just streaming, just regular streaming. I was taking a break from Final Fantasy and wanted to do just a night where I played a bunch of N64 games. I was like, I finally have a way that I can capture N64 footage. I love my N64. I'm just going to play a bunch of random games. And without knowing any speed tech, without knowing anything about the speedrun or how it worked, I got to Star Fox 64 and did a red line run and got to the end and was like, that was kind of quick. And I half jokingly said I would submit it to speedrun.com. I would be the person that submits a let's play to SRC.
Ooh.
People do it, man.
I hate it, but they do. Yes, they do.
But after the stream was over, I actually went and cut the VOD and timed it to speedrun timing, and it was 12th on the leaderboard.
Oh no.
And I was like, whoa, wait a second. that was pretty fast.
Wow, you really did that, didn't you?
Yeah, I totally stumbled back asswards into speedrunning, and I was like, because a very good friend of mine, Pidge01, had been harping on me for months and months that I should get into speedrunning. She wanted me to do SMRPG, obviously, because that's kind of the game that we bonded over. But I was like, I don't want to learn 100 super jumps. That's very scary. I can do I can do 6.
It's such a specific number.
And then, because after that, then the frame window cuts down to a frame and a half, and there's a lot of tech that I'm not gonna go into now because I'm gonna get the numbers wrong and look like a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like I was dabbling already. I was kind of learning Super Punch Out. I was able to get a few of those quick kills down. I was doing pretty good there, but like it didn't really. I was like, I don't want to sink my teeth into this. And then I jokingly have like a super fast red line, just goofing off on a stream, not even paying attention. I was like,
Yeah.
I guess I'm a speedrunner now.
You have this in your back pocket. It's really funny. I have such a similar story. I'm not going to tell it because I recently told it on an episode of the podcast, but just for your edification, I was streaming Mario Party 3 speedruns at the time, and I was doing and I was like not doing great at it, and I was like, I'm going to take a night off. All right, everyone, come watch me do Star Fox 64 tomorrow, and then nobody came. The only difference in the story is that I ended up being coerced by a score runner to do high score attempts, which I didn't like and I never did again. But it's objectively not a good use of your time.
Oh yeah, no, score attacks in Star Fox are brutal because you miss one thing and the whole run's just kaput.
Yeah, he was like telling me like, oh, a score of this is impossible. I was like, not only is it not impossible, there's someone that has a score 3 times as high. Your move.
Oh, Twitch chat.
Oh, Twitch chat, you came and you played without looking. All right, we're gonna get past that.
Yeah, that was so. Star Fox was my back pocket game, and I never could find another speedrun that I was super invested in taking. And then I became a living meme, I guess, because it's already bad enough that my first and only claim to speedrunning is essentially an auto scroller. I paused specifically for that, Mr. Pokemon Snap.
There's no, it's not an auto scroller, it's an on-rail shooter. You play an auto scroller.
So like, I already had that, and then one of my favorite games from my childhood, and one of those like really important games, is Dragon Ball Z Legendary Super Warriors, which is already a mouthful and a fucking half.
Ugh.
This is a video game that shouldn't exist. Okay, this thing came out on the Game Boy Color after the Game Boy Advance was already out. So like me being middle school and super into Dragon Ball Z and going to Walmart and seeing a Game Boy Color game on the shelf next to a wall of Game Boy Advance, obviously it stuck out. So I bought it, fell in love with it, just was a super pivotal game of my early teenage years. And then going back to it, I was like, man, this game is hard as balls. I wonder if anybody speedruns it.
And that's how you became the only person to speedrun the Legendary Super Warriors.
So I get there. I get to the speedrun.com page, and it is an absolute dumpster fire. There are like 600 categories. None of them make sense. No, I'm not gonna throw shade at anybody, but
there's 8 mods and there's 5 runners.
Yes. Okay, so that's a whole that is a side related story that I'll touch on in a minute. Basically, the short version of that is like pretty much all of the Dragon Ball speedrun community is moderated by the same group of individuals. Okay. And then each game has like a couple of tertiary mods that like help, I guess.
Sure.
So anyways, I get to this page and I'm like, this is an absolute dumpster fire. They allowed save states.
Ooh.
For part of the run. And like half the runs that were posted were like were actual let's plays, like people getting up and walking away, the timer is still going. Like, it was just like it was awful. It was miserable. And of course nobody played it, so the big mods didn't care.
Right.
And so I was like, man, that really sucks. And no one is ever going to want to speedrun this when they get to the page and they see this. Just this mess. So I coordinated with the world record holder and was like, hey, this page sucks. What can we do about this? And so we actually went to like one of the main dudes that like moderates every Dragon Ball Speed game ever and was like, what can be done about this? And to his credit, like within a couple of days, like it was completely revamped. We got it down to the categories that make sense. We kicked a lot of runs. We made everything nice and presentable. Got rules in place. So it's actually a presentable SRC page now. So I do like to take credit for that one. That I walked into a trash fire and was like, I'm gonna make this at least respectable. For a 6-hour card game that is 100% RPG and RNG and just, yeah.
You're hilarious.
Hey, it's what I do, man. My life is a meme.
So, speaking of memes, let's go back to the fact that you're a Street Fighter 4 legend, apparently.
Yes.
Personally, always preferred Tekken, but Street Fighter's cool. So how, why, and then where, what other one is there? How, why, where, what, when? There you
go. So let's see here. I've always been very competitive, just in general. Because I actually do listen to the podcasts. I did grow up in team sports. I played football, played baseball from little league up till middle school, and then I played football in middle school and high school. So I was on team sports, but always very, very competitive.
Right.
Growing up, played a lot of Street Fighter. So I had that route of just enjoying it. But what got me into fighting games and competitive fighting games was actually Smash Brothers Melee.
Okay.
So my first actual tournaments that I competed in were for Smash Melee. Was never like, prodigy god or anything. I could never wave dash or any of that crazy tech, but I had. And if there's any fighting game people listening to this podcast, you'll understand this problem. When you are the best of your friend group and you just mercilessly kick their ass without trying, so you never get any better.
Oh.
So you pound them into the dirt so you think you're hot shit, and then you go to an event where other people who are actually hot shit are, and they just beat you into the ground. You're like, what the fuck just happened? That was that was me with Smash Melee. And was when Street Fighter 4 came out in 2009, I want to say it was.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a big deal. Like, Street Fighter had been essentially dead, and Seth Killian pretty much revived it from the grave with Street Fighter 4. Capcom historically didn't even want to make Street Fighter 4, and it became their ultimate cash cow for like 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I played it and instantly fell in love with it and was just like, this feels good. This, like, the motions work. The characters are awesome. This is just fun to play. And the online was decent. I'm not going to say it was great, but it was decent.
Okay.
It wasn't GGPO. You don't know what that is, but people listening might. But, it had decent netcode.
Okay.
Especially for the 360 and PS3 era.
I was about to say, if you had decent matchmaking and multiplayer during that era, like early 360, not like late 360, everything on the 360 sucked.
Yeah. Yeah, it was bad. So just having decent netcode meant that, you were doing good. And that's about the time that I discovered Justin TV. I've been on the internet a while, man.
Okay.
Which I'm sure you're familiar with Justin TV.
Yes. There is an age gap here. I just don't know how large it is.
Probably not as much as you're thinking.
There's a video online where it's like this guy's trying to pick up a girl and he can't tell how old she is, and so he's like, at one point she like breaks out a Rolodex and then she like orders a glass of milk, and so he's like he has no idea. He has no idea. So it's like there's like this little like counter. It keeps going up and down. You want to see my thesis? Yes, and it's just a crayon drawing of a cat.
That's pretty much what I'm hitting you with right now.
Yeah, a little bit. Sometimes I'm like, oh, he seems pretty young. Oh no, he's old as shit. All right, he seems like he's your age. All right, never mind. We're back to being young, old. All right, so we're probably gonna end up being the same age, but you really are throwing me a lot of curveballs.
To set the record straight, I'm 29.
All right, I'm 27. So it's just all the difference 2 years makes, I guess. Right.
And 2 years on the internet is like, dog years.
That's like, yeah, you have like 16 years of experience that I don't have.
But yeah, so I'm watching a lot of Team Spooky and some of the beginnings of the FGC boom of the late 2000s, early 2010s.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just like, I want a slice of that. Because I remembered how embarrassed I got with Melee. So I was like, no, I can do this now. And that's pretty much is where it started, just playing in like I said, from 2009 to about I don't remember when Street Fighter 5 came out, but it was like 2013, 2014, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much that whole block. It was, I could play this cool new game that just came out, or I could spend that time in training mode and not get absolutely slaughtered when I go to final round.
So did you win? Like, did you? I don't mean that in a negative way. Like, how good were you at your peak?
Probably the best in my region. I never lost a local.
Oh wow!
But I wasn't like a top 16, top 32 contender. The best showing I had was at the Fall Classic in its inaugural year. I was one game out from getting out of pools, so that would have put me in like top 32. But yeah, so I wasn't like just absolute phenom or anything crazy like that. You're not going to dig up the archives of old footage and be like, "Oh my god, that was him."
I knew him when.
Yeah, so I mean, I was good, but I wasn't on par with like Justin Wong or any of the absolute just gods of Street Fighter.
And then did the scene just dry up, or did you quit, or what happened? Did you have some epic candle accident, or?
Well, it was more just as a side note. That's actually where my handle comes from. SilentHero was my tournament handle.
Uh-huh.
And when I started on Twitch, I was like, I'm going to stream fighting games, and that never fucking happened. I broke him.
Fucking hate you. I'm sitting here like letting out appropriate chuckle sizes, and you're just like, oh, it's never gonna fucking happen.
It's what I do best, man. I bring a very distinct energy. Yes, what I do.
Yes, you do. It's enough to like knock you off of your like balance, and so it's like, okay. All right, so yeah. You were saying?
But what got me out was Street Fighter 5. I hated it. Like I played, I was so excited for it. It was so amped. It came out, it was trash. I hated it. And I was just like, man, I hope they release another Marvel vs. Capcom game. And then they did.
And
Marvel Infinite happened.
Oh boy.
It was also very bad, and I was just so disheartened by that point that I was just like, well, I guess fighting games aren't for me now.
Rode off into the sunset.
Pretty much, kind of any time that like places have just random Street Fighter 4 tournaments, which does happen, I still try to make a point to go to them.
That's cool.
So I dust it off every now and again. And so here's a neat little Street Fighter anecdote. So I just came back from vacation. I landed yesterday. I went and visited some friends in Dallas, and they had an arcade there that had actual Japanese cabinets.
Okay.
And so I get there, and like the first thing I see, of course, is Ultra Street Fighter 4, and I'm like, well, I know what I'm doing. We're going for a 1 credit clear. So I do that, and then I look behind me, and there's a gigantic, like 4 cabinet Street Fighter 5 machine. I'm like, oh, well, that's interesting.
You gotta play that too.
Of course. So I go and I quarter up, and I notice that it has all the DLC that's been released over the past 18 years. It feels like that game's been out. And because they released a DLC character, Lucia, that I had been wanting to play, but didn't want to give Capcom money to play. But it was on there, so I was like, fuck yeah, I'll swipe. And so I pick her, and this is this day 0 with this character. I haven't touched Street Fighter 5 since launch. I never even was good at it. But I was like, I just want to have fun with this character, see how she plays. We'll try. If we die, I'm not gonna continue, whatever. So I'm going through arcade ladder and doing pretty good. And then a new challenger has approached. Okay, I'm looking around, and there's nobody else at the cabinet. And my wife was nearby, and I was like, can you like look on the other side and see like who's here? And she does like a full sprint around. It's like, there's nobody here. And I'm like, how did I just get invaded? And so it turns out that these cabinets are connected to like their own specific network. And any Street Fighter 5 cabinet that is connected to said network can verse each other.
Ooh.
And so that's what was happening is I was getting attacked essentially by players God knows where. Whatever they were at had put in a quarter into the machine.
So what it sounds like, the moral of the story is that you're buying yourself a Super Street Fighter 4 cabinet.
So you say that, but I actually do have several arcade cabinets.
I'm actually a really big fan of cabinets. I just don't have any because I don't have space in my apartment. But I would actually love to have some cabinets. I found there was a point in time where me and my brother, like a pizza place, had gone out of business.
Mm-hmm.
And they had 2 Racing USA cabinets.
Oh.
And those were so fun. They were so fun. He actually just sold them one day. He didn't even tell me he was going to do it. And I was like, why? He goes, you're going to come over every day for the rest of your life and play this game? It's taking up my entire living room. And he was in like a trailer, and I was like, I guess not. But it's still pretty fucking cool to have 2 race car cabinets, you know?
Yeah, for real.
That were connected.
That's exactly how I got my Miss Pac-Man arcade. I've got an original Miss Pac-Man that I got from a pizza place.
Oh my god. There's a pizza place. I'm waiting for it to go belly up because they have a Miss Pac-Man and Galaga machine. And it's like an anniversary edition. And they also have 2 Star Trek pinball machines. One of them is like a Wrath of Khan machine, like super old. And the other one is, and I love pinball. And the other one is a 2009 Star Trek reboot machine. And it's really cool. But they never plug them in. Every time I go and I'm waiting, I'm like, can I plug it in? And they're like, yeah, go ahead. Just unplug it when you're done.
Well, that's awesome. They let you do that at least.
Yeah, I'm like, what the fuck, man? Like, come on. You got these awesome, can I buy them? No. I'm like, when you close, if you ever close, will you let me buy them? Or will you give them to me? And they're like, yeah, but we're never going out of business. And we're never selling them. I'm like, well, that'll be the day.
See, I would love to get a pin, but I know the upkeep on those things is an absolute nightmare, especially older pins, because those parts don't exist anymore.
Have you been to a GDQ?
No, it's on my to-do list.
They have pinball.
And then the world fell apart.
Yeah. So at SGDQ 2019. That was they had like their own pinball room, and then there was like at AGQ 2020. It was just the pinball and the arcade worked together. I love the pinball room, and it had like records, and there was a box of records, and there was a record player, which was really cool. It had like this really cool thing going on, and the problem is that people like pinball too much. It was, and I can't smell. I have anosmia. It was so pungent in there, I could taste it.
Oh, God.
Because that's what my sense of whatever is. It's just like damp and warm air, and it's like cloggy. It tastes like warm hair that gets caught in the drain, but then the water kind of drains out anyway, and then it gets wet again. That's kind of what it was like going in that room. It was objectively awful. And I will say that every time that I played one of the older machines, it was like a blackjack machine. It was really, really cool. Every time that I played it, it had new buttons on it because people were just destroying it.
I mean, shout outs to the staff for replacing the buttons that quick.
Yeah, I mean, every single time that I touched that machine, it had new parts on it because like all of the pinball machines were just fucking dead. You know, I would love a room full of pinball machines. I wouldn't do it unless I had like a room full of parts as well. But yeah,
that absolute cacophony of noise would be great, though.
I would like get on like the 4th floor of like an apartment building, and I would just like annoy the shit out of like 3 tiers of I'm an asshole, by the way. I would just annoy the shit out of all my neighbors.
This is the story of how CJ went
homeless. No, it's great. We have fun. Wow. So, I do have a few more questions I want to ask.
Absolutely. We've been chasing rabbits for at least a good 30 minutes, so
I feel like I could riff with you for like 3 hours. So
it's very easy to do.
We're definitely if all the people that I've had on, there have been a bunch that I was like, okay, I'm pinching you off because we have to wrap up. This might have been one where like we could have accidentally done 90 minutes and I would have been like, fuck, we just did 90 minutes. All right. So we're gonna get a little bit into the we're gonna get a little bit into the silly, but we've been there. We've been occupying this space for some time now. So we have a mutual friend, Icka.
Good old Rekka.
Shout outs to Shuli. And all these people are the same person, by the way. Shuli, Icka, Icky, Rekka, Yuka, Erica. They're all the same person. So if you hear us, like, we're talking about one singular human lady right now. In case you hear us, like, go in and out of calling her 6,000 different names. And I am curious how you met her, but really how she met you. Because I have this thing with Erica where she always brings people to us. She always brings people back to us and is like, look who it is. And I'm like, how do you know this person? How did you possibly meet this person? So how did you actually meet Erica?
So what happened was...
Oh boy. What had happened was...
It was in Toledo, you see. No. So when my start on Twitch was streaming through all of the numbered Final Fantasy games.
Mm-hmm.
And when I had finished that, I was like, fuck, I didn't think I would actually accomplish this feat. What do I do now? Let's play through all the Zelda games.
Oh no.
So that happened, and that was like, I was like, well, I guess that's going to be my shtick as I try to find my identity in this hellscape of a website. Is I'll just be a series completer. And I had got to, it was one of the Oracle games. It was either Seasons or Ages. And I want to say it was Ages.
Oh no.
Where, and to hear her tell the tale, I was one of the first channels that she had stumbled into on Twitch.
That's possible.
I don't know if she was, I don't know how she found me, if she was just explicitly looking for Oracle streamers and I was the only idiot playing the game.
She actually does really love that game. And so that's probably what happened. Like she like searched the game and found you.
I think that's what it was, and I absolutely hated Ages. God, that game was misery.
Okay. We just had someone on the podcast like 2 weeks ago who like really loved that game. It's really funny, the juxtaposition.
Seasons was a salvageable game. I enjoyed Oracle of Seasons. Oracle of Ages, I would rather scoop out my brain with a melon baller than to ever have to experience that video game again.
Mm-hmm.
So she had joined, and she was kind of like helping out a little bit, definitely minding her P's and Q's, as she does.
She does.
But would offer advice when asked, and was just being very helpful. And she told me later that the reason that she had stuck around is because it was a channel that she immediately felt welcomed in.
Aww.
And she's like, I am here and I feel like I'm part of something already. Like, I don't know any of you, but I feel like I know all of you. And so that was like, well, that's the greatest compliment you can give me, because that's the kind of environment that I try to foster in my channel. And yeah, she stuck around, watched me play through a bunch of Zelda games, and a friendship kind of formed through that. And here we are.
Here we are. So, Erica, I'm guessing she found the Neverending Circle similarly, which is the community that CC Neverender, my co-collaborator on Speedox, and his buddy Calcium Woman, that's the name of their Discord, which is where a lot of people kind of, what's the word, corral, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so Ika has this habit of, she's like, oh, why not so-and-so? I'm like, who is so-and-so? And she's like, oh, they play Oracle of Seasons. I'm like, why do you know an Oracle of Seasons streamer? Is this another one of your stray dogs? Every time that she meets a new streamer, she's like, oh, come in, please sit down. It's like little kid bringing home a feral cat. It's like, it's like, please, I want to keep it. It loves me. And it's like, it's like, no, what are we doing? And then it's like, hey, how's it going? And the guy's like, toxic masculinity is actually a feminist myth. Okay, ban, Ika.
Whoa.
This is why we can't have. This is why not every stray dog, some stray dogs bite you. This is why you can't take them home. And then sometimes she'll be like, well, could I ask, like, I'm not going to say the name of the streamer, but when I tell you that they're like a top 10 speedrunner, they're in terms of popularity, like a top 10 speedrunner for like Ocarina of Time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're in that category. She goes, well, I know this person. And I'm like, we'll call him Roy, because I call everybody I don't know Roy. I'm like, how do you know Roy? And she's like, oh, I just met him. He hangs out here and here and here. I'm like, how do you know Roy? How do you know Roy enough to be like, call him and be like, hey, do you want to be an SDAT? Click. Like, what is this? What is it? Why did you just know him? Yeah, we Snapchat sometimes. I'm like, what is this? What are we talking about? What are we actually fucking talking about where you just know all these big streamers? She's like, have you guys ever heard of someone named, was it ZFG? We Skype sometimes. That's not a real example, but that's exactly what she'll do. I'm like, how do you know these people?
She has a certain charm to her that you can't help but be like, all right, sure, let's talk.
Yeah, I guess so, but I don't know when she has time. She does have to eat and sleep.
She doesn't sleep, you know that.
Fair enough. That's why her back's all messed up, which is why we had to throw IckaAid. Which, so that's a great segue.
Oh, yes.
9 out of 10 would do it again. So IckaAid was a charity marathon to benefit her so that she could have some financial relief for her back pain. which has just honestly gotten worse since all that happened, which is a real shame. But hopefully she's got some stuff coming up, maybe that'll help. But so we did IckaAid and before the world ended. We had planned to do it in March, the last weekend in March. Then there was a global pandemic, which was nuts. We raised like a little over $3,000, but that's actually where I met you for the first time, and where you stopped being one of Ika's stray dogs. And the minute that I saw your run at IckaAid, I was like, "Oh, he's a lock for Speed Doxathon."
So I have to ask, which run?
So I know you did the one at the end. You did Redline.
Mm-hmm.
I'm specifically talking about, and I don't remember who was on commentary with you, but your Final Fantasy X-2 run was terrific. And it was late, and I was like, this is pretty good, because I was kind of tired, and I had been watching for a long time. And I, at that time, and this is only, 6 months, 7 months ago, I never watched a marathon like all the way through, ever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not even like GDQ in prime time, I never did that. So I sat there and watched an entire day's worth of marathons, and I was ready to go to bed, and you like had me hooked the entire time.
Awesome. See, that's the stuff that you want to hear. Which now I'll pull back that seed I planted at the beginning, where I talked about how with task videos having the entertainment slider.
Yeah.
That's kind of ingrained into me now. So anytime that I do a speed run, like I, for better or worse, do kind of lean more towards entertainment. So that's why, like, especially when I run 10-2 in a marathon, I will always run it in English, even though we generally run it with Chinese text and Japanese language because it's faster. Like if already I'm having you sit through and watch a 2 hour and 45-minute RPG speedrun, I'm not going to put it in a language and text that you don't understand.
That's fair.
Even though it is faster, I will take the time loss for entertainment, because I feel like that's where a lot of runners kind of mess up in marathon settings, is they're like, I got to do world record strats. And for some games that works. For some games it does, and it's really hype when you nail them. But you also have to remember that people watching this aren't necessarily speedrunners. They want to be entertained. So that's, I try to take great care to make sure, especially in marathon settings, that I go for the entertainment. I definitely make sure that I hit estimate for sure.
Right.
Obviously you don't want to mess up a whole event because you're being a clown. But I do err more I put entertainment a little bit before I do actual speed tech.
I really appreciate that about almost everything that you do, is that you try and keep it fun. You were saying before, like, some people can pull off the serious, I don't know how I want to say it. Some people can pull it off, like, I'm going to go in and do, like, world record strat. If you're, like, A1 above the fold, you're a big streamer, and you're on the biggest stage, like, I don't want to, like, just name a person, but if you're Cheese playing 120 star on the prime time of the last day of GDQ, go for fucking every broken ass thing that you can do first try, dude.
Oh yeah, 100%.
That you are a rock star just for showing up. Just do it. But for a lot of people, it's like, Quo is the same way, and Quo, and Quo was on that was the first guest on this show. Shout out to Quo. And Quo, whenever he runs Splatoon 2, he leaves it on English, even though I think Spanish save is like 4 seconds, because the dialogue in that game is really funny.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like worth it. There's also some unskippable like cutscenes and stuff. It's like, it's just worth having the commentary on, in English so that people can read it. So really appreciate that about the stuff that you do. And I appreciated that so much that when I went to go make my own marathon, you were one of the first people I called.
and you have no idea what kind of an ego boost that was. Spoiler alert, though. I was notified a little beforehand. Erica let the cat out of the bag.
Oh, did she?
She did. I'm putting her on blast on the podcast.
Icky!
She blew the lid. She snapped me and was like, "Hey, CJ's putting together a marathon, and I think he's gonna talk to you about submitting. Is that cool?" I was like, "Fuck yeah, of course."
Yeah. Well,
So like, my goal for this year was to get Final Fantasy X-2 in a marathon, and fucking I've got it in 5.
what were the other 3?
So IckaAid was my first actual marathon was last year, and I did Star Fox Redline for DreamHack Atlanta.
Okay.
Which that was a whole thing in itself. And then I did 10-2 for the RPG Valkyries. Did a marathon called Speedrun Ragnarok.
Mm-hmm.
And no, that one was RPGs We Love. Okay, they run 2 marathons. They have confusing names. So I ran 10-2 for that one. Then IckaAid. Then Speed Doxathon, and I might be getting it into DreamHack Montreal. I've not looked at the schedule yet.
Ooh.
But they messaged me and was like, "Hey, we're doing this thing again. You want to submit? Nudge, nudge,
nudge, nudge."
So I'm not a solid on that yet. I don't know. I've not looked at the schedule, so I don't want to like, "Hey, catch me here," and me not actually be there.
Hey, catch him at DreamHack.
Don't do it. Stop it. So, but yeah, so it was really, it was really awesome to be like, I will get this thing in a marathon. I will do it. And then I just keep getting it in marathons this year.
Well, I wish I had that problem. I don't run any marathon save games except for actually don't run any marathon save games. I'm interested if you wanted to talk about like I thought what we did with your run at SDAT was a little different than some of the other stuff that we had done.
Mm-hmm.
Where like Cece was hosting and Cece just got on and started riffing with you. And that was the commentary for the run. And I gotta say, he really enjoyed that. The audience that was there really seemed like they enjoyed it. I didn't get specific feedback from them. Everyone seemed like they had a blast, and you enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. And he was like, "This is what Speed Doxathon should be." And I said, "You're not wrong. That's a cool thing when it can happen, but it's a perfect storm. You can't do that for everybody. Not everyone's gonna want you or me, him being CC, mm-hmm. to commentate on the run as a layperson, you know? Like, that's just not something that's feasible. It was really cool, and it was a cool thing to have happen. But I don't think it's, like, a viable thing. But I wanted to know what you thought about it, because it was during your run, and it was really interesting.
Oh, I absolutely enjoyed it. That's when I finished that run and was like sitting to myself, just kind of like letting the adrenaline wear off so I could finally go to fucking sleep because you put me on the graveyard shift.
Yeah. You were originally at 4 a.m., by the way. I did you a favor. God. You put any availability.
I did, and I would have accepted any time slot, but now that it's over, I can talk shit about it.
I did you a favor and I moved you to midnight.
I do. I really appreciate that. I would have done 4 a.m. and you would have not heard a single complaint about it.
Until we did the podcast.
But yeah, it's definitely, like you said, like it has to be a perfect storm kind of situation. And I have a skill, which I'm sure you're probably aware of now, that I can pretty much mesh with anyone I come into contact with. I'm just I'm kind of a social butterfly. I'm definitely like life of the party kind of. You put me in any group of weirdos and I can be just another one of the weirdos.
I resent that. I know I'm on the bigger side, but I don't constitute a whole group. That's a good one. You can use that one, by the way.
That was solid. I'm stashing that one.
My cousin Pete gave me that one when I was like 8 years old.
But yeah, so we're in the we're doing sound check and whatnot, and we had a little bit of extra time, and it was just me and Cece just shooting the breeze for a little bit. There was just an instant chemistry. It worked. We found immediate common ground on Melee, started talking fighting games. It just like we weren't even talking about SDAT or setup or anything. We were just literally just shooting shit.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, he was like, well, how do you want to do this? Do you want me to like commentate on the run? And I was like, I have an idea. You know about Jack and shit about this game, huh? It's like kind of RPGs in general. I was like, all right, you're going to be my surrogate chat member.
There you go.
You see things, ask questions.
And it really worked. I thought it worked awesome.
It did. Like, I was really, really happy with how well it turned out. And just how willing of a participant CC was in general. It's like, because I'm all, he's already trying to hold the marathon together with duct tape and glue. Trying to keep you from eating the paste.
Oh, come on. Dude, I gotta say, it was really funny. Everything after your thing broke. Like, after you was the Project Diva exhibition, and we had 2 runs back to back not show up, which constituted like 4 hours of content. And then,
my God.
So while that happened and we were scrambling to find replacements, while all that's going on, then the stream PC goes nope and just starts to ride the struggle bus. So the owner of the stream PC NASA were working on it. Quo was working on it. He had done like an 8-hour shift and then gotten back up after his run at like 7 p.m. to like work on this. They were up for like 2 or 3 hours. And it was so bad at one point we streamed from Dale Duck's computer of him playing like Miku. And then we were like, okay, we need to fill more time. So Edom was the restreamer, and he's like, well, I can do Fable. And Edom was on the podcast before too. And so he's like, all right, do Fable. Fable's already in the event. He did a Fable any percent run on the fly at like 4 a.m. And it was great because there was no problems. And yeah, and then everything, there was not really any problems on our end for the rest of the event. But it was like as soon as you went left and got off the air, everything broke.
That's kind of how it works. I take the magic with me when I leave.
Didn't you do a duet with your lady there?
I did. I absolutely did at like 3 a.m. It was great. I was shocked that she was so just willing because it was in the moment. We got to it. So I had a donation incentive for the game to watch a specific cutscene that we normally skip. And it's a J-pop duet. It's actually a really, really good scene. It's a really good song. Song's an absolute bop. It's an emotional scene. We normally skip it, but it's most people's favorite part of the game, like playing casually. So I always like to leave that as a donation incentive because it's always hit because everyone wants to see it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a thing in the Final Fantasy Speed community where we like to sing the game's song.
Right.
You'll find that out in doing future Speed Docs videos.
Oh gosh. All right.
But yeah, so I don't typically do it because issues that we talked about earlier. I don't necessarily think that I have the greatest voice especially for singing. So I typically don't. But in marathon settings, I do leave it open for people to donate. in order to make that happen. And Breach dropped a fat stack of cash right before the cutscene started and was like, I demand singing. I was like, wait a second. My wife's awake. 'Cause I totally thought she would be asleep. She's usually like after the 9 p.m. button hits, she's out. She's snoring.
Saw on some logs.
Yeah, she muscled through. She was a trooper and actually watched the speed run. I was very proud of her. Not because she's staring daggers at me right now from across the room. I'm totally
she's been listening to us this whole time.
I'm saying this of my own volition.
All right, blink twice if you're in danger.
Oh no, he can't see me.
Boy.
I look over at her and I was like, hey, you want to do a duet? And she goes, fuck it, sure. And she nailed it. She had no audio for that, by the way.
That's terrific.
She had absolutely no audio. She was going off of my tempo and just knowing the song.
Nice.
And was hitting those notes and just fucking killed it.
You were her tempo.
Absolutely. It was amazing. And it was a super awesome moment. I'm glad that we got to do that. It was a really special moment for me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I do want to wrap up. This has been terrific. You are welcome back anytime. We could do another hour if I were to let this go on, but I think we'll save it for the future. If you like this episode, let us know in the comments of the YouTube video or letting us know on Twitter. I don't know if the other episodes have comments. If they do, I'll read those, but I don't think that they do. If you liked my guest today, you can follow him on Twitch, where he is SilentHero Live. On speedrun.com, his profile says SilentHero. So you don't need the live, he's just a silent hero. I had it all pulled up and then I got fucked up. Hang on.
It happens.
I'm fucking the dog. That dog's getting fucked. 2 dogs fucking on the side of the road. Alright. You can follow him on Twitter. That's at SilentHero Live. Again, that live again.
You'd be surprised how hard it is to just get Silent Hero on anything.
And this is further reinforced by his YouTube channel, which is Silent Hero Streaming. That is his stream channel. So support the guy if you like him. He's a really chill guy. Go watch his streams. You won't be disappointed. He's very chill, very relaxed. He's got 54 followers. I want to see at least a few people follow him after this episode. So if in X amount of weeks, if you get a jump in followers, we'll know why.
Specify that the follower account is on Twitter.
Oh, yes, on Twitter. His Twitch followers are robust and strong and meaty. I was talking specifically about his... I did the social media equivalent of saying you had a tiny penis.
That is entirely what you just did.
I know. I pantsed you and was like, ha ha. All right, no. His Twitter needs to grow. Well, you Okay, hang on. We're almost done. Thank you so much for being a guest, Silent. Like I said, anytime that you want to come back, you're more than welcome to. Hopefully you'll be a part of, you're already a part of the community of my heart. But hopefully you'll be a part in the future of SDAT and other stream events that we do. You've been great and everything that we've had you on in. And honestly, really looking forward to the sequel to this podcast.
Absolutely. As long as you're doing events, I will be part of them.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. No, I'm not going to do that. That's fucking douchey. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Speedrun Insider. Next week, tune in. I have another equally special guest. And I'm really excited for you. Really, really excited for you guys to hear this one. He's an old friend, and I'm looking forward to sharing his story with you. So tune in for that. And honestly, just have a great rest of your day, man. Man, woman. Have a great rest of your day.